Welcome back to another episode of We Don't Know What to Watch, the podcast where two guys watch random movies and talk about them. With me, as always, is the effervescent and maybe even the voluptuous, the Lawrence Fishburne to my Keanu Reeves, Kyle Mulford. How you doing, Kyle?
I'm doing good. You have a choice: the blue pill or the red pill. Oh no, wait. Today's episode.
I will take
Today's
the third
episode is
option,
brought
which
to you
is
by the Continental because you are not allowed to kill me while I'm in the pod booth.
yes, and the Continental breakfast. I think they have breakfast, probably.
Well, he could stay there a long time and never eat the same meal twice.
Very true. Very true. And yes, I'm Noah Saturn. I forgot to say that, but it is I. And instead of the blue pill or the red pill, I will take the third option, which is, of course, the Flintstones multivitamin.
We are Flintstones kids, 10 million strong and growing.
Mm-hmm.
What did we watch?
We watched not John Wick Chapter 1, but John Wick Chapter 2. To John, to Wick.
He's the wickiest.
Yes.
John Wick is back, shooting more people with lots of guns and looking good in his suits doing it.
Mm-hmm. And some fun cameos from different actors. First, we have Peter Stormare as the brother of the Russian gangster from the first film.
Yes, and both of those actors are Swedish in real life.
Nice.
I love that beginning when John Wick is like taking out everybody in the garage, and you see it just goes this close up of Peter Stormare's face, just wide eyed. It's like I know he's coming. So you got what's your snowball pitch for this one?
Okay, well, what happens when John Wick, now unretired, has to do one last job before he can go back to be a normal person again? Because he signed a blood oath. Now the person is calling in the favor.
Yes. So as you learn in the first movie, he did an impossible task to get out. Well, you never know. No one ever says what the impossible task is other than he killed a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
But then in this movie, you find out that someone came in to help him at the last minute. So he gave him a marker, which is kind of, like you said, a blood oath that he could call in favor from. And after the last movie, the one guy he gave the marker to was going to respect his retirement. But then he's like, oh, you're back and I need you. And so here, do a job for me.
And then, of course, we get more lore, assassin lore. That's what these movies are about. Keanu Reeves looking cool and assassin land lore.
Yeah. And this actually takes place like within a week of the previous movie, because, at the end of the last movie, he's walking off into the sunset and, with a new dog and going to retire again, but he's still got to find his car, so
it's a very nice car.
He finds out that it's at, like you said, the brother of the other gangster in the last movie.
Like a chop shop.
The uncle of the guy who stole it, and he goes and starts at the whole movie starts with a car chase, him chasing a motorcycle, and then you get like a big chase scene in the garage, and then of course he takes out everybody and gets his car back, but it's completely just totaled in the process. I kind of love that we got John Leguizamo back as Aurelio again, because I just like John Leguizamo.
Yeah, he's like his buddy who owns a mechanic shop. He's like, okay, can you fix it? He's like, yeah, well, John. I mean, he just goes through everything that's wrong with the car. And then John just like shows him some money. He's like, yeah, I can fix it. When will it be done? 2030?
It's like, I'll be ready Christmas 2030.
Exactly.
I like the he's going through all the lists, like, your engine block is crushed, your door's banged up, you're like, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong. He goes, oh, and I don't know if you noticed, but you have a crack in your windshield.
Yeah.
I kind of like that part. So yeah, this is where he got his car back. He pulls it into the garage all beat up, and then he sends it off with Aurelio and sits back and retires. And that's the movie. It's very short.
Yeah, I'm surprised. It was only 45 minutes.
Yeah.
The end.
So the end. He gets to retire and live happily ever after with his new dog that has no name.
Until this Italian man, Santino D'Antonio or something like that, shows up and is like, hey, John, remember that marker? I have it. Can you do the job and honor the marker?
I like that John Wick is just like, no. And he's like, well, you refuse and you die. And John, I don't think John Wick's too worried about that. Just like, no, I'm not gonna. take it back. I don't want it. But then Santino goes and blows up his house, and so he's like, oh, fine, I'll go do this blood oath thing begrudgingly. He gets called in to kill Santino's sister because he goes, I still love my sister, so I don't want to do it.
Yeah.
But it's all about getting
Because-
like some spot at a high table where there's like 12, mob leaders from around the world that are part of the high table and make decisions in this whole assassin community.
Yes. And, the sister has a seat at the high table, and, I kind of want it. So you should go kill her so I get it.
Indeed. So he does. And
Yep. So then, of course, he goes to Italy and has like an eat, pray, love situation where he learns to love himself again. He even finds a new romance. No. So then he goes and he goes to Rome and he meets up with the Italian Winston Julian, and he's just like, John, are you working? People always ask him, are you working again?
Are you working again? Like the cop, Jimmy, you working again?
No. So he goes to Julian, and then Julian says to him in Italian, it's like, and he leans in close and he whispers, "Are you here for the Pope?" That made me
I love
laugh.
that line. He's like, "No, okay, that's good."
Then I can help you. Yeah.
Please say you're not here for the Pope because we know how good you are. Yes. So he goes to this club, this underground club, and there's a whole montage sequence where he goes to the sommelier, which is actually a gun guy. Because there's always like these little phrases that like mean something usually, but like it means something different in the assassin world. So it's like a code. But he goes to a gun guy, and then he goes and finds a map guy for all the underground maps so he can get into the club. And then he goes to a tailor and gets like this bulletproof suit. And he gets shot a lot in that thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and a fun cameo from Peter Serafinowicz as the sommelier, another great actor and voice actor.
Yeah, and then I think that the person, I think I read somewhere that the person who designs the suit in that scene is actually the costume designer for the movie.
Oh, that's fun.
Yeah. So he gets all this stuff, and in the meantime, Ruby Rose plays a mute right-hand man to Santino, and she's following him around to make it turns out she's there to tie up the loose end of, once John Wick does his job, then I'm supposed to kill John Wick. So everything's all tied up, nice and neat, nice and tidy.
Yeah, that's kind of where, he goes in, has a dramatic scene with his sister. She dies. She chooses to die on her own and not by him. And then, but her right-hand man is played by the rapper Common. So they run in and was like, John, you working? Yeah. And of course, did you kill? I'm going to have to kill you, John. So then, they fight.
I love their gentlemanly banter back and forth in this film, Common and John Wick. With, especially, well, we'll get to that in a little bit, but because he goes and he kills her, and then all of her henchmen come after him, and there's all these underground tunnels, and I'm like, man, John Wick is a good shot because you can't see anything in those tunnels, and he's hitting every target that he comes across. And of course, even though she died on her own terms, and she's sitting dead in the bathtub, and he just cannot walk past a corpse without shooting it in the head.
You got to be careful, just in case. What if it's a zombie?
Well, because there's even one towards the end that he shoots in the head and he starts getting up again.
True.
So he shoots him in the head again. But yeah, so then there's this whole back and forth between him and Common, and there's they fight through Rome, and there's one point. So I noticed, I was like, man, John Wick is indestructible. He's getting shot all the time with it's a bulletproof vest, but it's a very thin bulletproof material. So he's feeling all of those. And then he gets hit by two cars in this movie, and he rolls down this giant cement staircase. And those are the three things, that the two cars and the staircase, that I'm going, oh geez, those have got to be killer. And then what I was reading is that Keanu Reeves did 95% of his own stunts in this movie. The only stunts he didn't do was the two getting hit by a car and rolling down those stairs.
Nice.
But I think that's great. That's one thing we should mention is for the first movie, he did like 4 months of training, like 8 hours a day, learning all of these different fighting techniques from all these stunt coordinators and learning how to handle a gun. And they worked with him, like what movements are best suit him to like choreograph with to best fit him into the choreography. And I thought they did a good job with that in that movie and this one. And the stunt people that he works with, the director of this movie is Chad Stahelski, and he has been a stunt person for a long time and was actually met Keanu on the Matrix set and did some stunt work on that and has doubled for Keanu, and now he's directed him in these John Wick movies.
That's
So
cool.
yeah, so that's kind of cool that and Keanu's supposedly one of the nicest guys in Hollywood, so it probably was like, oh, these guys have an idea, and let's go do his movie since he's done my stunt work for so long.
It's like, I trust him. He's probably good to work with, and I haven't made an action movie in a while.
Yeah, well, and I don't have the Blu-ray of this, but I have the Blu-ray of the first movie, and I watched that in preparation for this, and so I watched a couple special features on that. And I think the same thing happened with this movie, where he did all of his own training again, and they were like, he did so good. He did better than a lot of professionals with like learning all this stuff, and even so, I know in the first movie and in this one, he also did all of the stunt driving, and so there was one scene, they said he got so good at the stunt driving. There was one scene where he in the first movie where he had to hit a guy with a car, so he had to peel out, do a 90-degree turn and slide into a guy, and they had a camera right there. He stopped right at the camera, and it was so perfect that they're able to zoom in a close-up on his face, and that's in the movie.
Nice. That's
And
awesome.
that was him actually doing that driving. So, but yeah, like all the driving, all the fighting, it's kind of like Tom Cruise movies. It's what makes the movie so good is that the actor's actually doing this stuff. So you can get a lot of close-ups of the action because it's actually the actor doing it.
Yeah, these movies are built for the stunts because a lot of the people behind the scenes, like you said, that even the director has a background in stunt work.
Yeah, so it's kind of like back in the now I just dropped his name, the one who directed Cannonball Run, Burt Reynolds' friend. He did stunt work for Burt Reynolds, and then they started doing movies together. He started directing.
Nice.
But yeah, it's I hate that I'm dropping his name because he's awesome. But yeah, it's the stunt workers doing this really cool stylized movie, but all the stunt work is great because people involved have all been doing stunts for a long time, and that's what these movies are mostly about. But they also built, like we said, a cool world of assassins.
World where everyone and your grandma could be an assassin.
That's one of the things towards the end of the movie where they're calling it as like, oh, there's a so since Ruby Rose didn't kill John Wick in the tunnels, when he got back to New York, Santino puts out a $7 million hit on him, and he sends it out to all the assassins. And like, I love that they call an operating center where like the all the women are dressed like old school operators, but they're all tattooed and everything, but they're still on like old typewriters. And then the switchers are all the old school switchers too. It was kind of an interesting switcher operator.
Call centers aren't that exciting.
Yeah, but yeah, there was a lot of buzz going on in that call center. But yeah, so they put out the call and they sent it to every assassin phone number that's in the system, and all of a sudden you're going through New York and just like, this person on the bench, their phone starts ringing. This lady pushing a carriage or a baby carriage, her phone starts ringing. This lady playing a violin on the street, her phone starts ringing. It's
This
just
guy
like,
who's just like eating a burger or something, you know.
it's like, oh, I got a call. I got to go kill someone. What's interesting is you watch the first one and this one, and other than Jimmy, who comes out to his house, there are no cops in these movies.
That's true.
So this is such a weird world too, because it's all these assassins, and then they have this hotel chain called the Continental. So there's the Continental in Rome, but the Continental in New York is the main one for John Wick, and you can't you go in there and you can't kill anybody. So when Keanu Reeves and Common are fighting, they crash through a window, and all of a sudden they're like in the Continental. They're like, "Sorry guys, you're done. Your fight's over here." And they're like, "Well, let's go get a drink."
Yep. So when John's back home, and then assassins are after him, he ends up He gives a homeless guy a coin and then hides under his tarp. And then two assassins come up to the homeless guy. And then, of course, everyone's an assassin. So even the homeless man, who you thought was just a weird guy, just like pulls out a gun and shoots him in the head.
And then takes him to Lawrence Fishburne.
Yeah, the Bowery King, who's like this head of the neighborhood and also has like deals and like information and has spies everywhere because, no one notices a homeless person. You just kind of ignore him. And he's right. And then he also has pigeons.
Yeah, and it looks like he sends information out via carrier pigeon and stuff. So then John Wick gets him to help, and he's like, "Why should I help you? You about killed me the last time we met." He's like, "Well, you can either kill me and there's going to be a war coming, or you can let me live and set me loose on these people so that war doesn't come." He's like, "Okay, well, the bounty on your head is $7 million, so I'll give you 7 bullets. 1 bullet for every $1 million I'm losing out on this deal." And so then eventually he finds out that Santini put the hit out on him, and he goes to kill him, and he walks into the.
Well, first it's this really fun kind of like Hall of Mirrors and art museum fight.
Oh yeah, because he had to go find Santini, and he found him in a museum. Biggest Hall of Mirrors ever.
Yeah, it's like some new kind of like modern art.
And apparently what they were going for there was that was an homage to some. I have to admit I haven't seen much in the way of Bruce Lee movies, but apparently that was an homage to Enter the Dragon, because there was apparently a fight in a Hall of Mirrors in that movie.
Nice.
So that's why they put that in here. So I was like, oh, that's cool. I'm gonna have to check that out sometime. But yeah, there's a big Hall of Mirrors fight and another shootout, and they eventually Santini eventually escapes and gets to the Continental. And I love this scene where you see John Wick walk into the Continental and go up to Lance Reddick, the guy at the counter, and he's got his finger on the trigger, even though he's walking into the thing. He's like, "Where's Santini?" He's like, "Oh, he's having a meal over in the restaurant." Just walks in, and this is where I love. We haven't mentioned Ian McShane owns the Continental, and he plays Winston, the owner of the Continental, and kind of keeps people in line there and says, this is a safe haven, all this stuff. And Ian McShane is just always awesome, and he just kind of oozes cool in this movie. But John Wick, and I always love that he's so formal. He's like, "Jonathan, what are you doing? Jonathan,
you know the rules, Jonathan. If you do this, you'll be excommunicado.
You don't want to do this. Walk away, Jonathan." And Jonathan puts a gun to Santini's head and just blows him away at dinner. Then we get to the end of the movie.
And then he leaves. And he gets a call from Winston, like, "Meet me in this park." He goes to the park. And it's like, "Okay, John, you're excommunicado, but because I like you, you get 1 hour and then you're on your own." So as he's slowly walking out of the park, you see time slowly tick down, and then more assassins are coming from everywhere, because apparently there's this big crowd of people at the park. They're all assassins, or they all work from Winston, because by the end of the conversation, they're just gone.
Yeah, there's one point where you see someone go talk into a phone and say "now," and everybody freezes and looks at him and then walks away. And I like this scene because it's like Winston is not part of the high table or anything, but it shows how much power Winston has by owning this Continental and keeping order and stuff. Because he's just like, Keanu's like, "Well, if there's a hit on me, why am I not dead yet? Because I didn't want it to happen yet." He's just like, "Because I said so."
Exactly.
And then he's like, "You got an hour, now run."
It's such a great ending. I love that ending.
Yeah, and you see him just you see Keanu just walking through Central Park or whatever, wherever they're at in New York, and he's walking slowly, and then all of a sudden, like, you start hearing phones ring again because the call is going out, even though they still have an hour. They're getting the message, and he's looking around like earlier in the movie, everyone he sees is getting a phone call, and he starts a limp running. He's like, "Oh shit." And then he goes off and retires again.
Yep.
Or
until the next
does
one.
he? No, we forgot to mention the subway gunfight with him and Common. This, the first time I watched this movie, I thought this was kind of goofy, but then I kind of liked it the second time around, where they're walking in and Common is up on a higher level and Keanu's down below, and they just got like discreetly holding their guns and just pew pew.
Yeah,
pew,
and
pew,
somehow
like
missing each other and every possible civilian.
Yeah. I
Isn't
love
that
how
good?
you don't see any civilians really. There's like only one scene in this whole movie where I feel like any civilians even reacted, and that's when they were shooting each other across the fountain.
That's true.
Everybody ran, but in the subway, it's like, these two people are obviously shooting at each other, and you guys are just like walking around like nothing's going on.
Yeah, it's New York. They've seen it all.
But then you get into the train and people just gradually keep getting off because they see these one guy in a really nice suit having a knife fight with someone. And I love the professional, or what was it, professional courtesy.
Yeah, professional courtesy.
He goes, I stuck this in your aorta as a professional courtesy. So if you pull this out, you'll die. But I'm like, so he's dead anyway.
Hmm.
But that comes back because he kills Ruby Rose the same way, and he doesn't give her the professional courtesy because he pulls the knife out back out himself.
Very true.
Oh, and another great line that I had written down was when Lawrence Fishburne, I was talking about, I was like, oh, you could either have this war or I could go out and kill these people. But the line was actually, you want a war or do you just want to give me a gun?
Yeah,
It's like, here you go.
it's pretty great.
There's a lot of great little lines in this movie. I
Hmm.
liked it, and I guess we can get into what we liked or didn't like, and whether we recommend this.
Yeah, it's clearly a high recommend. We love this movie.
I do. I didn't like this one as much as the first one when it first came out. I was like, it was okay, but like watching it again, I'd rank this right up there with the first one because it really expanded on the world that was just barely introduced in the first one and gave you some more interesting stuff, more interesting characters, introduces like a few more things in this world. And the fighting and the stunt work is just as top notch as the first movie.
Absolutely.
And it's such a fantasy world because, like I said, you've got everyone and their mom is an assassin in the city. So
Feels
and
very
not
video gamey in a fun way.
yeah, yeah. So I agree with you. This is a high recommend. Yeah, this is so much fun, and such a cool movie. And I'm glad they're making a fourth one now.
Yeah, that's gonna be awesome.
Uh, what would you recommend as a double feature with this? Since we both really liked it.
I was gonna stick an action movie with an action comedy, and I believe some of the same stunt people worked on this one. So yeah, I'm gonna go with the film that was currently theaters as of this recording, Violet Night, with Santa played by David K. Harbour, kicking butt, and I believe David Leitch, I believe was involved in the first one, at least as like a producer or something.
He
Also,
was actually an uncredited co-director. David
that's what
Leitch was.
I knew he was involved because I know he's an action guy as well, and
Yeah.
he was also involved in Violent Night.
Oh, nice. So that makes me even more excited for that. Awesome. Um, I'm going to go with the easy answer, but it has to be said. You have to pair this with the first John Wick. It's a great double feature because like we said before, it continues within a week after the first one ends, and it just kind of goes further with it and expands the world. And I kind of feel like it's good to watch the first one first. Just you don't have to, but it'll give you an idea of who this character is.
Yes,
Even though even though they kind of give you some flashback and a couple of lines are repeated from the first movie. Like I said, you don't have to watch the first one, but I think it helps. And I think it's a cool double feature just watching 1 and 2 back to back.
definitely. So, did we have any Chekhov's check off?
The Chekhov's knife in the aorta was one. I'm not sure what else. I'm sure there's plenty with like the coins and stuff. Um,
Chekhov's no business conducted on hotel grounds.
Yes, because then of course that leads to the ending where someone's going to get it in the Continental. I got him right in the Continental.
Ouch.
And then there's the Chekhov's suit because he gets shot plenty of times in that, but that's just a kind of an accessory. But I don't think there's anything like real standout that I can remember other than the knife in the aorta because it showed kind of who he has respect for and stuff. Because even though he's killing someone, it's like, hey, I'm going to give you the courtesy of doing this yourself, and then the other person is like, nope, just going to stab you and pull it out.
Yep. So He's still a bad guy. Well, definitely an anti-hero who has his own anti-hero code.
Yeah,
It's like if the
and
Punisher was cool.
right, yeah, because it's funny. He's only going after other assassins and stuff. So I mean, and he tried to retire and live a good life.
Mm-hmm.
So, but yeah, so I guess that leads us to our final segment of what are we watching next?
That's a great question. Let's spin that wheel. This is John Wick Chapter 3. I'm going to be so happy.
That'd be awesome. We'll go 70 or better and spin the wheel. This is Charles is a young provincial coming up to Paris to study law. He shares his cousin Paul's flat. Paul is a kind of decadent boy, a disillusioned pleasure seeker, always dragging along with other idols, while Charles is a plodding, naive, and honest man. He fell in love with Florence, one of Paul's acquaintances, but how will Paul react to that attempt to build a real love relationship? One of the major new wave films.
Is this sounds like a Steven Seagal film.
I think it might be, yeah.
Oh yeah, I remember his New Waves was very popular
He was doing movies during the new wave music.
during the new metal era.
Uh, this is a 1959 film called Les Cousins.
Nice. It's
Um,
about cousins.
we'll see how this one goes because I was not a big fan of the French New Wave.
Yeah, I haven't seen enough of it. And who directed this one?
This is Claude Chabrol.
I'm not familiar with him. You've got your Truffauts, you've got your Godards, you got your Vardas.
Yeah, I'm not real. I've heard this name before, but I'm not real familiar either. It looks like he wrote and directed it. 1959 film. It's on Canopy.
Nice.
So, yeah, that'll be our next movie. So, this ought to be interesting. We go
Until
from John
then,
Wick 2 to a French New Wave film.
we bid you adieu and gun.
And until next time, don't shoot me in the Continental.
And don't shoot the dog. Dog's a good boy.
Right?